Gilbriar Productions. This video was made by me, Paula Stone.
15 years, and it was pretty much barren back here. There were junipers, oaks, persimmon, yuccas. Trying to think what else. Not much else. So you'll be able to tell I've added a few thousand plants, hundreds, and they've multiplied into thousands. So anyway, here we go. So starting here is one of my favorites, white mistflower. And they do reseed a lot, I've found, because I'm finding babies everywhere. I've given away a lot of them. And this is a fall bloomer. And the real beauty of the white mistflower, well, there's lots of things, but one winter about 5 years ago, maybe 6, it was blooming and nothing else was blooming in the garden. And so I walked over here and it was covered with bees and butterflies and all kinds of things on nectaring on the flowers because there was nothing else, especially butterflies. I think I counted 10 species of butterflies right then and there. It was astounding. And that's when I determined I want a bunch of these. And I've probably got a dozen now around the property, maybe more. And if they come up, I just leave them alone. But it's a wonderful, wonderful plant. And it does get this big. I've seen people plant it where they want like a 2-foot thing. And, you know, that's another part of my philosophy is plant a plant where it can do what it wants to do. Now, if I wanted to keep this to 4 feet, okay. But to keep it to 2 feet would be just silly, wouldn't it? So check the size, the mature size of the plant. Make sure you have room for it. It's much better. And I like the natural look. Sheer just drives me nuts. So I like this. You know, maybe sometimes when it gets a long arm like this, okay, I'll go in there and I'll go, yeah. Okay, so I like a rounded shape, but not round. Okay, so when if one over here was like this, I'd prune that. But I don't prune that much, and trees either. Just leave everything to grow the way it wants, unless if there's a tree branch hanging over your walkway, you have to prune it. There's occasional reasons, but really you don't have to. Now over here is another favorite, and I've planted them all over, and that's American Beautyberry, and it's starting to get its berries and has the most beautiful lavender berries in the fall. But with all the rain we've had, it's kind of doing its thing a little sooner. It does like shade. And here's a tip. Things with big leaves don't like full sun so much because, they lose so much moisture through their leaves. So they're the partial shade or even shade. So this guy will grow in even more shade. And he doesn't get a lot of sun here, and yet he's going to berry, which is wonderful. So I love these guys. And then here is it was existing stand of possum holly, all of this. And when we moved here, there was one, and it was this one over here. There's just one. This guy here is the mama. Here's the mama, the only one here. But I noticed over time that there were little sprouts out from it, and then the deer would come eat them up. So the next year, I noticed the sprouts and the deer ate them up. So finally I got some fencing and I put the fencing around a few of the sprouts. And lo and behold, they started growing and growing, and they had a good root system from the mama, so they grew pretty fast. Then when we put the fence up where you just came through the gate, look at what they did. So I'm sure that these aren't berries. They might be because they do come up easily from berries. This is probably a long root. And all along the root, there's a lot of things that grow that way. You've got a long root, and then pop, 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 all along the root, you get more trees. So some trees grow that way. They sucker. And this guy suckers. I like this because that part of the property over there is not developed, is not pretty. So I just didn't look at these. If these weren't here, or if they were limbed up. I don't limb things up that much either. See, I don't want to see over there. So I let these go to the ground. I let them grow the way they are. I like this. It's a screen. It's a living screen, right? You can see down here, I'm starting to take back my dry creek bed because of the last year plus not being able to do the grooming I normally do. This stuff has just, come in and taken over, and I will, do it. But again, a reminder, if you have rocks like this, then don't plant things that really reseed a lot nearby. Good lesson. Okay, check out all this. Check out all this. You'll see them everywhere. Okay, this is Liatris, or gay feather. Okay, I would say, I'm not exaggerating, I've got hundreds just in this area. Now, I've probably planted a handful. They reseed, and this is the bad thing. If you're on the downside of a slope, okay, so let's say up here, where do the seeds go? They come on down here. So yesterday, I pulled out so that I can walk here, I don't know, 40 in between these stepping stones. Another lesson, you know, if you have a slope, watch what you're planting, because what you plant on the slope will end up at the bottom of the slope. And this is such an ideal spot for plants, the rocks keeping it moist, that they just go nuts. So these are actually kind of a problem. Okay, the other way to handle this, but you have to be disciplined, is to come out in the fall when they're done blooming and cut the stalks, the bloom stalks, before the seeds drop. Well, guess what? I didn't do that. So that's a great habit. So I have a little pond, and I have a, I guess it's not native. I thought it was a Texas star hibiscus in there. See, it will grow in water. Isn't that interesting? It doesn't have to have water, but it grows in water. This is the one with the big red flowers. So. Okay. Prairie flame leaf sumac came up by itself, so I'm leaving it. Prairie flame leaf sumac suckers. It puts out roots like this, and then all along it has, so you know, that'll be happening, but you just, you know, maintenance is required in the garden. Now here's what I do when things are leaning. I take, instead of, you know, the old cable and whatever system, I just take cedar branches and I put them, I need a taller one now, I put them and prop the things up to keep them upright. And many things, after they've been that way for a while, will then will grow straight, which is really cool. So, but that's the way I prop things up. If you see those on the property, I'm propping something up. I'll prune that guy. It's time now to prune that guy off. Because he's just going to grow. See, this is I told you there are reasons to prune. He's just going to keep going this way, this way, this way. So what's the point? So when they're young, you leave all the leaves on to feed the roots. But once they get older, you can train them a little bit. This is mountain pink, and I collected seeds at Cross Mountain here in Mountain Pink in Fredericksburg. And I stood at the top, all of this stuff here, I stood at the top and flung seeds. I did plant the red yuccas, but the rest, I just flung seeds, and all this came up. It took years, okay. And the mountain pinks, it was the same thing. I just flung some seeds. It took like 3 years. I flung them, and the next year nothing, and the next year nothing, and then all of a sudden they started showing up. So I still only have about a dozen, but I just love them. I'd like to have 100. I just love the color and the shape. So, and they're little. They're really cool. Collected seeds years ago of Barbara's buttons. Love Barbara's buttons. Little plant puts up a bouquet of white flowers. So I flung the seeds there, and oh my word, the next year I had probably 60 Barbara's buttons, and they were gorgeous. And the year after I probably had 160. And then and now, and again, they were on the slope, right? So where do the seeds go? So now I've just been digging them out. Look, here's Barbara's buttons. There's about 15 to 20 right there. They're here. They're here. And this is what they look like when they're done with their bloom stalks. Not so pretty. So I'm digging them out of the rock, and then I'll have to kick them back. But you see all of this? So what you'd have to do to make it pretty is you go through and you'll cut the bloom stalks off. And if you don't want more, you cut the bloom stalks off while the flowers are still, when they're done, but their flower heads are on there. These things, before they drop their seeds. Too late. They already dropped their seeds. So see, you can groom that up, which I will. But I just wanted to show you Barbara's buttons. Look at here, all here. This is my little lawn. There it is. And I didn't plant it. It was there. It is made up of mesquite grass and buffalo grass. And it was actually There was just a little bit of it like down there. I noticed it when I carved this area out and did the rain pond. And so every year I came out and I'd water about a foot on this side until it got to the edging. And it's a solid little lawn now. And it's actually going that way. This is ironweed. Ironweed. Be careful of ironweed. If you've got acres, it's great. Put it out. Let it go. There's two. There's woolly ironweed and then western ironweed. This is western ironweed. Woolly ironweed has really thin blades. Now, it's coming into its season of glory, and that's why I've left it. Otherwise, I'd be like, because it spreads everywhere. July, the heat of July, this guy's blooming, full bloom. And most everything else has shut down. The Zexmania is done. The fleabane daisy is done. You know, everything's done, and this guy is going to town. And it's gorgeous, especially looking down on it from up there. Yeah, look over here. Isn't it gorgeous? It's going to be a blaze. It's just starting to open. It's going to be a blaze of purple. So I love it. But the downside is it comes up everywhere. So again, you make your choices. But I mean, it's going to be so gorgeous. It's just a nice, vibrant purple. So. And here I've got my weaknesses. I've got cedar sage in the path, and I say to myself, "Oh, I'll dig that guy up and put him in a pot." I can't do that. I just got to get over that. I've been doing that for 16 plus years, but it's time to stop. Kathy, stop. There's another white mist flower here, and over here are 4 white mist flower. I was trying to think what to put on this berm, and I came up with a white mist flower. And they do well. I wanted them all over. And this is not my prize, but one of my prized beauty berries. Look at this. And the pink flowers are coming, and they'll be followed by the beautiful lavender. I guess they have a white variety now, but this is the original one with lavender berries. But I planted this here for a reason. Everybody, not everybody, but people are into limbing things up. And I'm the opposite. I want to fill. So instead of being here and looking through there, I wanted to fill this opening with something. And it's shady, which it likes, and it gets a little bit more water, which it likes. So I put this here, and it is rewarding me. It works. Sometimes what I do works, sometimes it doesn't. This one worked. So I did this rain pond. I'm trying to think what year it was. I guess it was 2010. And it was really pretty. It was nice, and nothing was in there. And then I put this berm here because I did this to slow the water because it was like rolling down this slope. And so I did the pond to collect the water, and I did a berm. And I needed something on the berm, so I planted Indian grass, which is one of my favorite grasses. But you have bunch grasses, and then you have the other type of grass. And a bunch grass grows in a bigger clump, like the big muley. The other kind, like Indian grass, just goes like this, and just keeps going. So I planted on this berm 5 of them. Now, that's all Indian grass all the way. Keep it. Another prairie flame leaf sumac. This is a larval and citrus family, unbelievably. This is called prickly ash or toothache tree. The Indians used it for toothache because when you chew a leaf, and you can do it, I have people do it, you do it like in your front teeth. You don't eat it or swallow it. You just chomp, so you get the juice out, and then your tongue starts to tingle. Tickle tongue tree. And there's a little bit of numbness. It's kind of fun. So, but our biggest butterfly, the giant swallowtail, lays eggs on this guy, and I've seen it. So that's what I do. I plant plants that I like and can also serve another purpose, which is feeding wildlife. Kind of weird to think of butterflies as wildlife, but they are. So this is and it's prickly. I planted this here, and I know there are people who don't like prickly. Okay, so you plant prickly off away, maybe not this close. You can still grow prickly if there's a good reason, and there is. But a lot of people just don't want anything prickly in their garden. That's a shame. So they won't be feeding giant swallowtail butterflies. And then I'm a sucker for wildflowers, so all of these shouldn't be here. They're in the path. but I love them. This is basket flower. And when it first comes out, it looks like a thistle. It's kind of, but it's just gorgeous. Look at that. I love that basket flower. It needs more moisture. And oh, there's another basket flower coming up. And then these guys, I've got the same thing over here. This area is a grass that gets this tall. It's awful to mow if it gets past you. It's this stuff. And I don't like it here. This stuff. I think it's Joey Morris. I've never been able to ID it for sure. But see, this whole thing, last week looked like this. Don't like that. So look what I've done. I noticed a patch of the mesquite and buffalo coming in. And I'm like, okay. So down the road, it'll take a while. Hopefully this whole thing could be that. And then it'd be so easy to maintain. And plus, it's not a dense grass, so the wildflowers could still come up through it. So it could be a wildflower meadow, and then you could have your green lawn, so to speak. People are so keen on lawns, but green spot. And it does look nice when I haven't kept it up, but I do like it groomed up like this. So, let's see. I had a couple of huge ones on the property, and either old age or something killed them. They're trunks like this. And so the babies have been coming up over the years, and I've left them. This guy clearly, something's got to go, either him or the juniper. So maybe, you'd think it would be a no-brainer that the juniper should go, but the red oak is so susceptible to oak wilt. So if I were to get rid of that juniper and make room for the red oak, and then the red oak croaks, where am I? So I kind of have waited. Oh, over in here is a Carolina buckthorn that came up by itself, and it has a prettier shape in the shade. It'll grow in full sun, but it's really tight growth. It's got its berries on it, so that's a bird-friendly tree, anything with berries. And that's probably why I have, so many, about a dozen around the property or more. Carolina buckthorn. This is another persimmon, and I got my little, it was kind of hanging over, so I've got my stake there to get it to grow straight. And here's another red bud that was 3 inches or so when I planted it. And here's another beauty berry. It's been a good wet spring. These things really suffered in the drought, and I confess I had to give them supplemental water. Well, they were a lot younger too. They were little, so they might make it now. But the beauty berry, especially when it needs water, it's flat and wilted. So my property is probably not the best place for it, but it's managing. Here's another persimmon, which is, Texas persimmon, and flame leaf sumac suckering from somewhere. There's one nearby, and it's suckering. This is the stand of Indian grass that I'm keeping. I'd like every blade up there to be gone because this is small enough to manage. And I know, see, it's not there, but I know when it comes outside the border, it's got to go, right? So I can control it. It just has to stay inside the border there. And in the fall, it's covered with, up to here, fronds, gorgeous gold. And the sun coming through them, it's worth it. It's some trouble, but everything is. That's why I grow it. So in the fall, it's just blooming its head off. It is so gorgeous. Love to walk by. This is the second little mini rain pond, the big rain pond to collect the water, slow it down, because this was eroding for years. I finally did, I think, solve the erosion problem with all of this, and the grass catches the water, really good, and sends some down. And then I stacked these juniper logs here too to slow it down. Here's another beauty berry. And here's a sumac. Well, this is interesting. I got to show you. Wowie zowie. Check that out. I recognize it. And I haven't seen it, so it's fresh. That is porcupine. A porcupine has come, and porcupine, they're not gnawing at the bark to get to something. They eat the bark. The bark is the food. And so it's all the way around. And you know what? Oh, no. Oh, no. You know what? This guy might be a goner. He looks like he's girdled it. Look at this. So when they go all the way around, that kills the tree. Look, this just happened. And that's another reason for leaving a lot of sumacs, because I had this happen about 6-8 years ago. A porcupine came and I had a gorgeous sumac and it died to the ground. Then it came out like as a shrub from the roots like this. So it's kind of funky looking, but it was no longer a tree. Oh boy, I have to go check my sumacs. So what I've done in the past is I have a little, I can do a chicken wire collar around it to discourage it. And I should. Look at that. Wow. Well, things happen when you live in the country. Okay, so this is one of my favorite spots. And when we moved here, it was just, there wasn't stuff growing wherever. And we came back here and I said, oh, darn. We were considering buying this lot. I said, why does this have to have this area? Oh, well. And we bought it. I said, it's far enough away from the house, I can just ignore it. It's ended up being one of my favorite places. My husband built the footbridge and had a helper build the railing. And I just love it. And it's cool and shady no matter the season. It's really fantastic. And I've planted a few things, but like this toothache tree came up by itself. And I did plant crossvine, and it's crawling up into the junipers, which I like. And I have beauty berries there. I've got 3 big beauty berries down in there, and Turk's cap, and roughleaf dogwood is what's suckering. It suckers really. Don't buy roughleaf dogwood unless you want a lot of them. It's really hard to control. In maturity, see, small plants, people say, oh, it's not a problem, but the more they mature, the more they grow. So I wanted a thicket, but I do want to be able to walk through there, so I need to clear my walkway. But I wanted a thicket, and I actually planted a yaupon up there, 2 of them, because I don't want to be able to see through. I would love to have it like that all the way, so that it's an enclosed thicket. It was that way when we moved here 22 years ago. The junipers had skirts. They were all the way to the ground. If you can see, you can see the cuts. I mean, they all had long arms, and then over the years, those bottom branches died out from no sun, and they looked bad, so I did cut them off. But everything was low growing. You could stand here and not see anywhere. So, landscapes change over time. So I'm trying to restore like the thicket in here. It's so cool. So cool. And so the temperature, in the summertime, it's really nice. Really nice. This is our native Ruellia. See? You can tell from the flower. And I collected seeds at a friend's and started pitching them. And I now have, I think, probably over 1,000 Ruellia. It's not exaggerating. They haven't gone to seed. What they do is, just like if you've had the Mexican petunia, you know how aggressive it is. It aggressively reseeds. You can't control it because the seeds are ready to go, and when they're brown and the water hits them, the rain, and I learned that in my last home. I was watering and I kept hearing, and I was like, what on earth? And I got closer and closer, and it was the Mexican petunia, which has the same seeds, it's the same family, and I watched it spit its seeds all over. And I said, oh, and it was just as the water hose hit it. So this guy does the same thing. So I have thousands, plural, probably. Here's another red bud. Kind of not getting a lot of shade, so it's not looking as pretty as the others. That one was 3 inches when I planted it. Beauty berry here. And you can see the roughleaf dogwood. It was one plant once upon a time here. One plant. And I had a cage around it before we got the back fenced. So, yeah. So the fence has only been back since, the back is since 2008, because before it was fenced, the deer had free reign and they would have eaten all of this. So look at that. I like it though. So if you have space, you plant things and you just let them go. This is rusty black haw viburnum, and I did plant it. I planted 3 or 4 on the property. Most nurseries don't have it. A native nursery might have it. I asked one time why they didn't have it. They said they were hard to grow. So I feel really good having some on the property. And it has beautiful white flowers in the bloom time, and then followed by berries. So black haw viburnum. Elbow bush. It's a native plant. I planted them here to fill. I don't like open spaces, so I planted this elbow bush here. And it's just kind of, you know, sprawly. The deer will eat it, so it wouldn't look like this out in outside. But it'll actually grow. It'll grow like that. And it doesn't branch, and the end of the branch will curve down like that. That's why it's called elbow bush. So, and here are 1 and 2 and probably 10 or 12 over there. A friend of mine gave me a white mist flower, and I planted it over there. And because the place wasn't fenced yet, and that had some fencing around it. And it was a wet year. Oh my word, I probably had 25 babies the next year. And that's where all these ones I've been showing you, the white mist flower, came from that plant. Now, I didn't dig them up and plant them there. I put them in a pot so that I could make sure they had enough water, a little bit of fertilizer. I had so much going, I didn't fertilize as much as I could. Anyway, I grew them, you know, till they had a good root system, and then I put them in the ground. They're the ones you've been seeing that are quite large. Same with the beautyberry. I don't dig and move, because look at this. I mean, look at this soil. It's not that hospitable for a new little plant, right? So I get them big enough to do well. So I dug up, and I didn't get them all. So I've got probably 10 or 12 white mist flower in here. AC oak, and it's a real pretty small oak. For those yards that don't have room for a big oak, this is the one to plant, lacy oak. Here, this is funny. This is more rusty black haw viburnum here and there. And the great big mama died, and mama put out about 15 suckers. I was like, I didn't want, oh, what am I saying? Put out. Here they are, look, 15. Let's chase that to 25 to 30. They're all suckers. And I was like, what? You know, I've never heard of it, like suckering like that. So I talked to a tree fella, and I said, do you have rusty black haw viburnum? Yeah. I said, does it sucker? He said, no. I said, what? I mean, look at this suckering. And they're off of a root. Those aren't from berries. Those are roots sprouts. So I said, how is that possible? By the way, look, here are the pretty berries. So I said, how is it possible you studied sucker? So I had that situation with 3 or 4 trees for years. I kept reading and reading. I finally stumbled across what I think is the answer. And the answer is this. This is shallow soil. There's limestone underneath, and it's got a layer of soil on top of it. But you go down, I don't know how deep. It's over there, 6 inches. Here, maybe a foot. I don't know. And it's limestone. So the roots have to, and as you saw with the sumac, flame-leaf sumac, the roots have to go this way, right? They go this way, and what's happening there is they're sprouting all along the root. But why? Because the sun, if the sun warms the root sprouts. See, if it's down deep enough, it doesn't get the warmth of the sun, but that triggers the root to put sprouts up. I'm like, it took me years to find out the reason, but I finally did. So, and there's nothing I can do about that. You know, I've got shallow soil. The roots are going to be like this. So that's the way it goes. This is frog fruit, and it is the coolest little ground cover, and you can walk on it. You know, it's really, when it gets tall, you can mow it, you know, to keep it lower, but it's also a larval for one of the butterflies. So you know why I'm growing it. So as you can see, Ruellia, look, overcast day. You know, everybody has its season of glory and then its time of glory. And the Ruellia's time of glory is overcast day. Look at this. Look at this. I mean, it's beautiful. Look, that's the beauty of Ruellia. It's everywhere. See all the Ruellia in full bloom? Yeah. This is Turk's cap, a butterfly, hummingbird plant. And I did the same thing here. I didn't want open, limbed up trees. I wanted stuff. So I planted the Turk's cap, and it's rewarded me. This is what I wanted. I wanted it to fill in, and they call them drifts. I wanted a drift of Turk's cap. And also in there, I didn't want emptiness, so I planted fragrant sumac. That's in there, it's fragrant sumac. I planted one small plant years ago. And see, it's doing that. I wanted that. That's the look I wanted. And so, you know, I don't like bearing. And this is the other rusty black viburnum in the shade. That one's in the sun. And it does sucker, but not as bad as the one in the sun. See, so that makes sense. The warmth isn't as great there. But look at the berries coming. The berries coming. See, I leave the agarita. I do prune it from time to time. Oh, this is my prize cherry. I gotta look and make sure the porcupine didn't get it. Oh, I had something around this. Oh, I'm gonna have to put a collar. Porcupine would love this. Okay, so this cherry, okay, it has been like 16 years, maybe 18. And it was on the side lot line. Nothing was here, no house, no nothing. And I saw this tree, and it was this big, had 4 leaves on it. And I'm like, ah, that looks like a cherry. So I went and got my Wildflowers of the Texas Hill Country book, which is the best book to ID things. It has most everything in it. Sure enough, it was a cherry. So I dug it up and put it in a pot. And because there was nothing here, no place to plant it, this poor guy was in a pot for 5 years. I put him in a bigger one, 5 years. And then one day I planted him in the ground. And I don't know how tall that is. Let's see, 20-some feet now. So this is my prize starting bush. I grew from a little bitty baby. And then in here is white mistflower, Turk's cap, elbow bush. This is a shady, so it's not broken. This is see, I have my propping deal with the toothache tree or tickle tongue tree or prickly ash. In the shade, it's not going to grow the same. But it's here. It planted itself, so I leave it. And this is fall aster. And fall aster is, as you can see, a ground cover. I'm a little bit sorry I planted it here because I didn't want it to take over. So, but it's going to. So if I had my druthers, it would be gone. But it's beautiful where you can just let it go, or you have a way to corral it. It blooms in the fall, but it will try to bloom in June or May, even if it's wet. And if you let those go, then you're not going to have fall bloom. So what you need to do is, which I've done, you need to come in and no later than June, because I did it in July one year and then didn't have bloom. No later than June, you need to cut them all off. And I have those, finally, I used to do it by hand with pruners, with these guys. Silly. And then I finally got those long arm things that you do this with, and I just, and then you'll have a gorgeous fall bloom. If you, like I said, if you don't do that, it'll be spotty bloom in the fall. So anyway, and this I was considering my butterfly garden, trying to put things in here and it's an overcast day, so you won't see butterflies. They need sun on their wings to fly. So that's why you don't see many on an overcast day. But, and this guy was in a pot, and I went to move the pot. This is Carolina buckthorn. Look at that pretty, gonna have the white berries. Was in a pot right there, and I went to move it, and it was already rooted, so I just cut the pot away and mounded the soil and left it. And it's pretty happy. Pretty happy. These don't look that pretty this time of year. This isn't the best time of year, right? It's summer. These are coralberry, a native plant. You see, and the beauty of it, it's like a ground cover. It'll just fill in and be thick, and it has reddish berries in the fall. So it spreads by runners. And it's somewhat easy to corral. This is a wafer ash, and there were a couple. Boy, I hope the porcupine doesn't find this guy. I'm going to have to put a collar on him too. This is a larval for the giant swallowtail, along with a prickly ash. This is wafer ash, and I did. And the caterpillars would be at the tips. That's where the female would be laying eggs. But I planted this here so that from up there, I could see if there was anything, eating caterpillar. So that's wafer ash. It's a small ornamental, a little bit spindly, but I like it. everything doesn't have to be a canopy tree, right? This is purple leather flower. So here's the flower, this bell-shaped thing, purple leather flower. And then these are the spin flowers, and you cut them off if you don't want more. If you want more, you wait till this goes brown, and then this is made up of, 20 seeds on that one, and I've got about 30 of these, so you could have leather flower, and I've taken them, flung them all over, so maybe someday this property will be covered in leather flower. And there also is a scarlet leather flower, where these are red. I have that too. It's not blooming up by the patio. So there's purple leather flower and scarlet leather flower. Kind of cool.